feel like Obie's just trying to make me cry before I start speaking. First off, I can't say how much of an honor it is to be speaking at this year's first pitch dinner. This is something I've always wanted to do ever since I graduated from Morris. Even though the thought of speaking in front of a group of people is absolutely terrifying to me. But I wanted to do this because my time at Morris was so meaningful to me, and I'm very fortunate to have the opportunity to share that with everyone here. As Obie talked about before, I was a pitcher here at Morris for 5 years, graduating in 2022. In that 22 season, that was when the current seniors on this team were just itty-bitty freshmen. It's been great to see them develop over the years. The difference between my first few years at Morris and my senior year was a night and day difference for both the team and for me as well. As mentioned before, in 2022, we ended up winning 22 games that season, which is the most in program history. The previous 4 years combined that I played, really 3 because one was COVID, that only had 5 games, but combined for a total of 25. So you can imagine just how much of a high note it was to end on that 2022 season. As far as my own personal journey, as mentioned before, kind of took the same type of trajectory where beginning on in the first few years, I didn't have a whole lot of faith in myself. And now when I look back, I'm immensely proud of what I was able to accomplish and what our team was able to accomplish. As well as all the on-field accolades, playing at Morris had a huge impact on me off the field too. Looking back at my time here, it's still a huge and important source of motivation and drive for me, and that I'm going to push through for the rest of my life. Playing here at Morris gave me a sense of direction and purpose, and made me realize what I wanted to do as a career. What I mean by that is I graduated from Morris with a degree in statistics and a minor in math. I know, gross, right? That's usually the response I get. And right now I'm in my last semester in a doctorate of physical therapy program at Concordia St. Paul. And I know you look at those two paths, stats and PT, and you think, well, those are not related at all, and you're right. But the reason I chose PT, very late mind you, is because of my experience here at Morris, which I'll go into more detail later. But the big arching picture is that playing here at Morris changed my life, and it means so much to me. And I'm grateful that I have the opportunity just to share as to why it was so meaningful to me and what made the 2022 season so special. So we're gonna go back a little bit before we even got to Morris. Back in high school, I always had this dream of playing college baseball. That was the big goal for me. The problem was, in high school, I was bad. Or at least I viewed myself as bad. That was because of a few reasons. First one, my sophomore year in high school, I was cut from the team. And I mean cut from the sophomore team. I didn't get to play baseball for a whole year, and that was really heartbreaking. The next few years, my junior and senior year, I tried my best, worked really hard, and ended up making the team. But it didn't end up being a whole lot of playtime either. Specifically in my senior year, even though the high school coaches knew I was committed to come play at Morris, I ended up only pitching 6 innings in high school. So that was kind of a shot to my ego. And I was not injured either, I was completely healthy the whole season. Speaking of recruiting and coming to Morris, Morris was also the only school that reached out to me in any way, shape, or form that wanted me to play for them. And their version of reaching out was to send a flyer to come to a pitcher-catcher game, which I'm pretty sure was sent out to every pitcher that was at a showcase in Minnesota. But I ended up going, and that's how I got recruited, which gave me a glimmer of hope that I could do something special. But based on all the other stuff that happened, you can imagine I didn't exactly have a chip on my shoulder the first time I came here. Now, I want to get into an idea that was mentioned before by Obie, and I think it is the most important attribute or characteristic that someone can have to be successful. And I think it was the biggest difference between the earlier years, even for me, and with the team, and able to see the growth. And that word is confidence. I did not have confidence at Morris, probably for my first 3 years. Didn't have a whole lot of play time. And I started to question whether I could even be an average player. That was my hope, is to just help the team win in any way, shape, or form. But that lack of confidence showed. The biggest way that it showed for me was more of a psychological thing, where I was so afraid of failing. That was the worst thing that could happen. And I remember every time I stepped on the mound during those years, negative thoughts would always jump into my head. And thinking about what could go wrong, and I didn't want that to happen. Don't throw a ball, don't let up a hit, don't let people score. That just burned into my brain. And because of that, I became really timid in those years. I tense up, especially in situations where people started to come on base, started to fall behind the count. I would almost like lob the ball. No intent behind my throws, no aggression whatsoever. Now, I'm gonna go off on a little bit of a tangent, but I promise it connects back to the story. Our brains are so powerful. Our mindsets are so impactful, and they impact so much of our body in in so many different ways. A big example that I use for this is the placebo effect, which sure we've all heard of before, where participants in this study were, I believe they were experiencing headaches. They were given a pill to help with their headaches, when in reality, that pill did nothing for headaches. And yet, people had improved symptoms, solely because they believed they would. We actually talk about something similar in PT. We call it words that harm. Okay, they were good. We call them words that harm, words that heal. So an example of it is if a patient comes in with their knee, their knee's not doing good, we're looking at that. You do not refer to that as their bad knee. You do not let patients call it their bad knee. You call it the affected, unaffected, stuff like that. Because those negative attributes that the patient starts associating with that, and this is true if you look it up, it actually delays their body's ability to recover. And they're in therapy longer because of that. I think that's so mind-blowing that our mindset can change our body's ability to heal. Same thing happens with athletes as well, where if you keep thinking about negative thoughts about what could go wrong, likely bad things are going to happen. And that's what I experienced over my years here. And then a side effect of this, but I also thought it was a primary sign that I didn't have confidence with my body language. I remember every single time I let up a walk, sometimes even just one bad pitch in a bullpen, slap my glove, throw my hat, throw my glove, stuff like that. And I know a lot of people will look at that and say, well, athletes do that all the time. They just care, they're really competitive. And to an extent, yes, that's true. But I think there's something more underlying going on with that. And I know it was for me, and I feel like it affects a lot more people too. When you show that type of frustration for something that didn't go your way, it's because there's a part of you that doesn't believe that you can overcome what went wrong. You don't have confidence in yourself, you don't have belief. That's what I struggled with. And I think it's funny where if you look at the teammates on those earlier teams when I struggled with that, they showed a lot of those same signs, a lot of frustration. They also did stuff like when they'd make a mistake, sometimes they wouldn't take responsibility for it. They'd blame the umpires, blame the coaches, stuff like that. Sometimes when they'd make mistakes, it would snowball into more mistakes, more and more and more. And sometimes when we got punched in the mouth and went down early, no energy in the dugout, nothing. That doesn't sound like a confident team to me. And as I alluded to before, we didn't win a whole lot either. And I don't think that's a coincidence. Now, when it comes to confidence, how do you actually build it? And it can be built. Actually, if you look this up, some people consider confidence a skill that can be improved. And it can be hard in baseball. Baseball is a brutal sport that absolutely destroys our morale. You can do everything perfectly and it's still not the result you want it to be. But it's about doing the little things every single day. It's about things like, if there's a bad result, you can almost always cling to at least a small part that went well. You can cling onto that and build onto it. It's about putting in your best effort at practice, every single game, every single rep you take. And being honest with yourself when you look back as if you did everything you could. But I think what the most important thing was, and this really separated the 2022 team from every other team I've been a part of, is that if you look at the coaches and players, yes, they had confidence in themselves, but they also had confidence in the people around them. It felt like no matter what setback we had, no matter what mistake someone made, they'd say, my bad, I'll make the play next time. Or the guy next to me is going to make the play. And that makes all the difference. Environments are contagious like that. And I don't know what was going on in other people's head at my time, but I remember during that year, what was going on in my head was completely different than my other 3 years. Instead of what could go wrong, the first thing that jumps in my head is always what could go right, what could I do? If I let a guy on first base, immediately thinking double play. If they're running game-winning runs on third base, I'm always thinking about how I can get the out. I didn't even consider any of those other negative options. And that's how I built confidence into the player I was there now last season. And I remember stepping on the mound every single time, and I felt like I was Superman. I felt like I was indestructible. And the thing is, that carries on afterwards. I look at myself now in graduate program. Grad school's tough. I look back and I don't think I would have made it through if I can't remember those times where I faced hardships on the mound and got through that. And it's so meaningful to me. Playing at Morris meant so much to me because I was able to achieve something that I initially thought was impossible. My first years here, I was hoping to be an average player. And now when I look back, I see my name in the record books on a team that's in the record books. And that means so much to me. And as much as I needed to put in the work to get there, the amount of love and support that I got to see from every single teammate, every single coach, and all my friends and family made all the difference for me. That was the boost that I need to get on the right track. And now I'm the man I am because of those experiences. The level of pride and passion that I experienced while playing at Morris is truly a blessing. And that's why I got into physical therapy. Because I believe that every single athlete deserves the opportunity to know what that feels like. My goal is that every single athlete I come into contact with, whether it's in a clinic or at an alumni game, or even just watch me play town ball, I hope that they'll be able to experience even a fraction of what I experienced here. My hope is that this team right now can build on those qualities that made my senior year so special and continue to propel this program into even greater heights. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the rest of the day.